All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 2021 Be Strong Talk from Grace Roots, the local nonprofit in Josephine County, working on addictions and substance use disorder challenges, and especially the opiate epidemic that we've had in recent years. We're working in a number of different ways to help people be strong and to make more ways to get to that point where people are in recovery and are learning to be strong. And to that end, we do these monthly talks, and we record them and put them up on our YouTube channel. You can find our past talks at just go to YouTube and look up Grace Roots Be Strong, and you'll see some of our great past monthly guests that have told their Be Strong stories. And most of our Be Strong stories are about being strong in recovery, and how somebody took those steps to get into recovery and what they do on a daily basis while they're in recovery. And our guest tonight, Kandi Kirby, is she's got a Be Strong story to tell from a couple of different perspectives, and we're especially happy that Kandi has joined us tonight because she's on the backside of actually dealing with COVID right now. And so she is being strong on a number of different levels right now, and we're thankful that she's still with us tonight to tell her story. And she's being strong through COVID right now, as well as recovery. So Kandi, without further ado, why don't you go ahead and take it away and tell us your personal Be Strong story.
All right, thank you, Jay. My name is Kandi. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. But also I like to introduce myself as my name is Kandi. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which means I haven't had a drug or a drink since July 14th, 2008. Thank you to my friends who are joining me, Karen and Larissa and Patty. And Jay, thank you for the invite, and Archie. So I'll go ahead and let you know, like Jay said, I am overcoming COVID. I think I'm on day 7. And to be honest, I feel pretty crappy, but I am grateful that I am not more severely ill. I am grateful that I don't have any pre-existing conditions. So this has been a really crappy inconvenience, and I've been kind of really sick, but I'm grateful that I haven't been as ill as some of the other people in our community and in our country. So to anybody who's been affected by COVID in that manner, my heart goes out to you. So because I'm sick, I have no idea what's going to come out. So good luck to you all. Some of you have heard my story before, and I bet that my friend Larissa could probably like keep me on prompt, but that's okay. I got a little list right here just in case I wander. So a Be Strong story for me is basically my testimony and how I got clean and sober. What I do, now, and mostly about my life in recovery today. I always like to start with, they say in AA, you're supposed to do what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Well, what happened, I like to say, is just as much like any of you. Like, our stories are always similar, but they're different. Our stories are always like colored with the trauma and childhood abuse and dysfunctional families usually, and a series of events or feelings that lead us to our first drug or drink. So what happened was, I come from an alcoholic family. I come from a drug using mom and an alcoholic dad. My dad died of alcoholism when I was 12, and my mother continued to drink and use for many years of her life until she got older. So I was born in Louisiana, but I grew up in Roseburg for a long time. And when I got here, everybody was like picking on me because I was different. And that's true. I've always been different my whole life. So I got picked on early on in school because I was different, and I had all this curly hair, and I used to brush it when it was dry. I don't know if all you ladies know what it looks like when that happens, but it's not cute. So I was really different. I had a Southern drawl, and I had different manners than anyone else. So from the get-go, I was always different. And people always noticed me, and they always noticed me as different. I was pretty hyper as a kid. So I have ADHD, and so that was really going on when I was a small child. So the theme is I'm always different. So I moved here, and again, I'm always different. My dad was an alcoholic, as I said. my mom and him divorced when I was 6 months old because he used to get blackout drunk, and she was afraid that he would hurt me as well at 6 months old. So I moved here to Roseburg, and I tried to fit in, and it was really hard. I got to junior high, and junior high was not very fun. There's that awkward stage. My son is actually in 8th grade now. I don't envy him whatsoever. When he started junior high, I walked into the same junior high I attended, and it smelled the same. Like, even though I'm 49 today, and I was what, 12 or 13 when I went to junior high. It's crazy. So when I went to junior high, those 3 years, as I said, it's kind of a blur. My mom most frequently put men before me. So whatever man she was with at the time was her focus. I do remember being loved and cared for, but I just remember like being in the background. I had a stepdad that wasn't very nice to me in junior high, and my mom was leaving him. So she left me with him for a period of time. And I remember, that kind of abuse was something that like I thought was my fault. And I know today that that wasn't my fault. When my mom got out of that abusive relationship, she had, of course, another husband lined up. And that was my sister's dad. And they stayed together for quite a while, but they would drink and use together. But again, I'm in this back, round, I'm in the background, and, what she's doing with her partner is most prevalent. So I kind of tried drugs. I tried drinking and smoking like in junior high, and I didn't really like it. My dad also died when I was in junior high. So I had those like 1, 2, and 3s. Like I tried alcohol and drugs, didn't like it. I had an abusive stepdad, and my dad died all in junior high. So junior high was a really pivotal time where I was just like confused. And I like to say that hole inside of me began to open like an ache, and I used to be empty. So I went to high school, and I fell in with that crowd that drank and used. And, from there, as they say, the rest is history. They drank, they used. I remember drinking alcohol for the first time, and I was like, wow, that feeling of like, I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I have confidence. I'm beautiful. Everybody likes me. And then I remember trying like marijuana. It didn't work for me. And then eventually when I think I was a senior in high school, we all went out clubbing. So I had these one friends that used all the time, and these one friends that didn't use all the time. So I would bounce back between the two. And we went clubbing in Eugene, and we tried a white powder, and that was it. That white powder was something that I really loved at first use, and I was on top of the world, and I was good. Everything else didn't matter. That's what I was going to do. So luckily I got caught, and I got put into my first rehab when I was 17. And that was a good experience, and it was positive. And I got to deal with my stepdad's abuse with a counselor, and that was really important. I'm pretty sure I'm alive today and somewhat functional because of that work that I did when I was younger. So I stayed clean and sober for 4 years, and I worked inside of a rehab, but I stopped working a program for me. So meaning I went to AA and NA when I was 17 to 21, and I had a sponsor for a while, and then I stopped working with a sponsor, and I only took people to meetings in the van that I drove for rehab. And I worked at a rehab. I worked at the same rehab that I went through as a child or as a teen. I worked on the other side, and I was like this poster person, and it was like this impossible pedestal that I just didn't want to live up to. So when I turned 21, I wanted to drink and be like everyone else, but I didn't tell anyone, except for those normie friends that you can escape with, normies. And I drank for the first time at 21. Between 21 and 34, there's a lot of things that happened, but this is the long and short of it. I went from drug to drug, from alcohol to substance, from alcohol to another substance, and etc. I call it the handoff. So when one thing would stop working, I would take the other one. When I would lose too many jobs over hangovers, I would mix pills with alcohol, the opiates with alcohol. And then when I would just almost overdose on those, I would let those go, and I would mix something else with alcohol. So alcohol was ever present, but drugs are definitely a part of my story. In that time frame, how many years is that? Larissa, I always ask Larissa. Between the ages of 21 and 34, I had like relationships with men. I had good ones, only a couple, and the rest of them were, they're possessive, they're controlling, they're abusive, they're dysfunctional, because I come from a dysfunctional family, so that's what I mirrored. In that time frame, I had good jobs, and then I lost really good jobs because I would just screw up and miss work because I was too loaded. Sometimes I would be at a lower paying job, I remember, and then because of my sales ability, I would get noticed and they would give me a higher paying job. And that with that higher paying job came more money. It came a car, expense account, and I'm surprised I didn't die in those times. I had all the money I needed, and I was still as empty and as desolate and as miserable as I ever could be. And I was a liar, and I wore like a mask. I smiled. I looked perfect from head to toe. My makeup was in place. Everything was just right because I didn't want you to really see me. And as you can see me on the screen today, I will make note that I have no makeup on and I am sick with COVID, and I'm appearing on a recorded recording, but that's okay with me because recovery has taught me to be okay in my own skin no matter what. So that's a real blessing. So I lost my place, but I want to say that during this time frame, there's just a lot of things that transpired that continued to fill that empty, gaping hole at the center of me. And nothing could fill it, not enough drugs, not enough men, not enough crime, nothing. And for a while I was homeless, and I lived in my car, or I lived at a trap house or a drug house or a friend's couch or anywhere I could, because that's the lifestyle I was leading. I was a drug dealer. And all my boyfriends were drug dealers, and everybody I knew used drugs, and that was the life I was in. But there's that inside voice when you get pretty deep into your addiction. I don't know about you guys, but there's that inside voice that when you get in there, there's that little naggy voice that says, hey, you don't belong here, or hey, this sucks, or hey, I'm so miserable. Like, how do I get out of this? I don't know how to get out. I remember thinking, like, how do I get out of this? How do I come from like a homeless drug addict dealer to like, how do I get the hell out of this? And so I couldn't figure out a way. Luckily, God intervened, and I became pregnant, and I was like, well, I better get out of here now. And I still didn't know how to get out. So I remember I sold like drugs to get a ride to Roseburg to see my mom because I had to go home. And so I went home, and my mom was like really suspicious of me, and I lied, of course. So I set about trying to figure out what I was going to do. I didn't want to have this baby. I was very, very scared. And at the time, I think I was 34 years old, and I had never had a child. And so I think I had considered getting rid of my child, but then at a certain point, I remember that those plans fell through. And then I knew that, it just came over me that God wanted me to have this child, and that's what was going to happen. And I better get ready. I remember at a certain point in my pregnancy, like, I was like, oh, here we go, and like, this is going to happen. And I just remember, like, I think it was God kind of speaking to me like, hey, yeah, this kid's there's my child. This kid is a survivor, and so are you. This kid is made out of what you're made out of, and he's coming. Get ready. So that was very scary. And but as he sits upstairs now yelling at his game, and happy and full with dinner I just fed him, I'm really grateful today that God intervened and my plans fell through, because he's super cool. He is 13 now, and he smells, and he's weird, and I really miss my little boy who used to snuggle with his mom, but whatever. This too shall pass. But the cool part is that I'm clean and sober today, and I get to raise him. So fast forward, I ended up getting some drug charges, and here in Roseburg, go figure, because I couldn't stop using drugs even while pregnant. And so thankfully God intervened again, and I went to jail. So what needed to happen for me is I needed to go to jail, and I needed to have the legal system on my back to force me to get clean. They offered me the drug court program here in Douglas County. And all I heard was, you get to get out tomorrow. And I said, sign me up, I'm ready. So I got out the next day, and my child was, I think my kiddo was, I was still pregnant, sorry. And I just kind of played with drug court off and on, didn't really go because I was pregnant. And then finally, I got another charge. I think I was revoked, reinstated, etc. Anyway, long story short is, I got in trouble a couple times. So I had a few felonies facing me. I did have my child. He's brilliant. He's awesome, as you heard him screaming in the background. And he's got all 10 fingers, 10 toes. He's smart. He's kind. He's considerate. And he's a great kid, and I'm grateful. I did everything wrong in my pregnancy, and I have this great kid. A lot of ladies do everything right, and things don't turn out so well. So I know that God bestowed on me this gift of this boy to, guide and raise. And so I am grateful most of the time, except for when he stinks and he won't take a shower or brush his teeth. And then I'm like, what do I do? But it's the little things, I think, today that catch me, not the big things. So I went to jail a few times. I took the drug court program. I was facing like 3 felonies, I think. I got out of jail. I had a little baby, and they said, he has to stay at your mom's house. You can't have him in your possession because you're a relapsing meth addict, and we don't want you to have your kid unless you're supervised. And I was like, what? Because I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a good mom. Because there's that denial piece. So I got out of jail, and before I got out of jail, I met a CWP worker or child welfare worker, and her name was, I forgot her name because COVID brain, but she's a really great lady. She's still my friend today. And she's like, hey, listen, like, you need to do this, this, and this, and I'm going on vacation, and you got 30 days. And if you do anything wrong, then, you're in jeopardy of losing your child, and you need to be in supervision of your mom and your sister at all times. So that's what I did. While I was in jail, though, before I got let out, before I met that CWP worker, I met this lady who knew all the people I knew, and did the same drugs I did, and had a child that she lost. And she said, sit down, I'm going to tell you a story. When she found out I had a baby and I took drug court, and she told me the story of how she lost her child, how she couldn't stop doing drugs, and his name was Connor, and he was such a beautiful boy, because she showed me a picture. And I didn't know what she was trying to tell me, because she was kind of gruff about it. She wasn't real nice. But she told me how much she loved him, what his favorite things were, what he looked like, and how she lost him, and how I knew the same people she did. And then she slammed her fist on the table and made a loud noise. I can't remember. I was so scared. And she just stared at me straight in the eyes, and she said, don't be like me. Don't be like me. So I think that was God working through her. Something inside me clicked, something inside me changed, and I was not going to be like her. Her name was Bonnie. She's still alive. She's in prison, and I've gotten messages back to her, and gratitude and thanks for that pivotal moment in my story. So I got out of drug court. I went to drug court. I didn't look sideways. I didn't glance the wrong direction. I didn't cross the street without looking both ways, because I didn't want to lose my child. And drug court is a pretty strict program, and it's very strenuous. So, and remember that lady said, don't be like me. So I knew that if I didn't want to be like her, I had to do everything that they told me to do. And so I did. I didn't like it. I didn't love it at all. I could hardly get to my appointments and my groups and my meetings and my house and take care of my kid and get dressed and do all that shit at the same time. I just couldn't figure it out. But that's what was going on. So I ended up being referred to inpatient. So I waited 30 plus days to go to inpatient, because I had relapsed, I think, while I was in drug court. Because when I got out of jail, I think I used that one last time. And that one last time was miserable. And that one last time was awful. And that one last time didn't work. And I didn't even get high. And I remember thinking, is this all there is? Is this it? And I knew that there was a lot more out there for me. I didn't know how to get it. I didn't know how to do it. But I just knew that I had better figure it out, because the law wanted me to stay clean, or they're going to take my kid, or I was going to keep going to jail. And let me just tell you, if you haven't been to jail, the food is not good. So I got out of jail. I embraced the drug court program. But most importantly, what it's like now and what happened during that pivotal time is the drug court program provided me the framework. The drug court program provided me the structure. The drug court program provided me the counseling. to start healing from my past trauma. And I started going to AA. AA is really where the foundation of my recovery was laid and where it still stands today. I went to 30 meetings in 30 days. Actually, I think I went to like 70 or something in 30 days. And I listened and I learned and I listened and I vibrated and I couldn't sit still, and everybody made fun of me. They still do because I could sit still today, but they don't see that. They remember the other Kandi, but that's okay. And I started listening to what they had to say. And my friend Gene was in the rooms and he kept dragging me to meetings. And all I knew is that I hated myself and I was empty. And you guys were smiling. These people were smiling and they were laughing. And I just wanted to know what that was all about. So I got a sponsor. Her name was Cindy Kay. I worked the steps over the next like 22 months. And I graduated the drug court program. During that time frame, I did attend inpatient treatment at Crossroads and Adapt. It was a good program. It helped me learn how to live. And I'm grateful for that experience today. When I graduated drug court, it was March of 2010, I think. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I continued to stay clean and sober. I had clean and sober housing. I always went to a meeting. You know, this is the part of the story where I shift into like, hey, what am I doing now? Like, that's what happened to me. And that's how I got to where I'm at today. But really where I'm at today at 13 years of sobriety is I go to Alcoholics Anonymous on a regular basis. I go to Narcotics Anonymous sometimes too. And I don't let anybody tell me where to get my recovery. I go to church. I attend Zoom meetings. I attend in-person meetings, not currently because I don't want to get anybody sick. But I do. I go to AA, NA, I go to church, I go to CR. I've been to, I think that's about all the kinds of, I think I've been to CODA, because wherever my God wants me to go for my recovery is where I'll go. And I'm kind of a rebel still, and I don't like people telling me what to do, especially when it's like, oh, well, you can't go to NA and go to AA and have an AA sponsor. Well, I'm like, you want to bet? So, I mean, I do what I do because it works for me. I had the same sponsor for many years, and how I laid the foundation of where I'm at today and how I stay strong today is, you know, I worked with that sponsor for many years. She moved, she came back, and I emulate what she does. I still hear her words coming out of my mouth. I work the steps several times with her. I did work with a few other sponsors and picked up things from them. You know, I sponsor other women in the program. And back when I got off probation after I graduated drug court, I started thinking about what my future would be. Like, should I go to school? And I really thought I was stupid and I couldn't go to school and I wouldn't be smart because I did too many drugs. And I always make sure that I hit on that point. Like, drug addicts and alcoholics are not stupid people. We are brilliant people who are just broken. And we don't know how to access that because we have been hurt and we have so much trauma and pain on top of that. So I can't emphasize that enough. So I went back to college and I got a 4.0 in my first term, and I was baffled, but I was also really excited because I had this teacher who was like, hey, blah, 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 I'm really hyper and I'm ADHD and like blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow. That lady's just like me and I'm in the right spot. So they also said something in that book. What was it? It was a counseling skills book. I can't remember, but I always felt different. Remember, my whole life, different. And when I was using, people used to come up to me like all the time and tell me their life story and like ask me how to solve their problems. And I would tell them, and they're like, wow, you're really good. Why don't you take your own advice? I'm like, nah, you know. And I just never knew why that happened. Now I know today that when I landed in that college class, there's a line in the book that said, if you sufficiently mimic the client's posture and breathing pattern and rhythm, you will begin to feel their feelings in your body. And I was like, what? I've done that my whole life. I could feel others. I could feel others. I could read others. I could hear them. I could almost hear what they're thinking sometimes. And so I felt like, wow, I'm in the right place. I'm a weirdo, but I'm in the right place. There's a name, there's a reason, there's a thing that I can do, and it can help other people. And it's unique to me and these other people in this class. So I went to college for 2 years and I graduated. I was afraid to graduate. I thought, as an alcoholic and a drug addict, that I thought something was going to happen and they're going to take that away from me. But they didn't. They gave me a degree. I remember driving away going, wow, they gave me a degree and everything. Like, I graduated. Is this a mistake? It was not a mistake. And then after those 2 years of college, I had worked the steps a few times. I had a toxic relationship, of course, and but I had gotten out of that, and I decided that I was just going to take the summer off. Well, a nice lady named Pauline Martell called. She was my mentor in school, and she worked at Adapt, the large treatment facility here in town. And she said, "Hey, I got a job for you. I want you to interview for it." And I was like, "What?" And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And she's like, "Well, it's working with teenagers with drug and alcohol problems, being a counselor." And I'm like, "What? You want me to work with teenagers who lie about their drug problems? Like, I would not be good at that." She's like, "I think you'd be great for that." Like, okay. So she set it up and I went and I interviewed. And this lady, this blonde lady, stared at me during the interview. I was so scared of her because she was so intimidating. And she stared at me. Mean look on her face. And the competitiveness in me kicked in. I was like, I'm going to win this lady over in my head. I'm going to win this lady over. Watch. I'm going to get this lady. Just watch. I'm going to be charming. I'm going to have all the right answers. I'm going to wow her. I may have an ego, maybe. And so I began answering their questions, and I was just like, I began really trying to shine and push and shine. And pretty soon during that interview, her twisted up mouth turned into a smile. And then she laughed. And I was like, I got her. Yeah. I won this person over. Because, in the drug and alcohol game, you have to be a survivor. You have to read people. You have to be able to win people over at any given time because you're often in dangerous situations or you want what you want and you need to get it. So I was using my powers of manipulation for good. That's what I call them. And 4 hours later, they called me and offered me the job. And I was like, wow. Coincidentally, that lady, that blonde lady who frowned at me and then smiled, she just died like less than a month ago on August 10th from this COVID. And her death was the reason why I decided to get the vaccination, plain and simple. So it gives me a little bit of emotions because that was just like a really cool lady. And it was a big impact to this community and the old employer that I worked for. So I decided enough was enough. If it was going to help, I was going to try it. So I was only one shot in before I got COVID, mind you. But my son is fully vaccinated and I'm okay with my choices today. So I began my career at Adapt as a drug and alcohol counselor and for teenagers, and it was hard. I didn't like it. That they didn't like me, and I came home most days saying, I don't know why I took this position. Teenagers suck. But then I started to work in the detention center here in Douglas County, the juvenile detention center, and I started to work with hardcore drug addicts, and I started to work with repeat offenders. I started to work with criminals who had done the same things I had, had the same drug addiction and issues that I had, but they were half my age. So then I recognized who I was working with. And because recovery has taught me to be transparent, and recovery has taught me to be open and honest, and recovery has taught me not to have hidden motives, and recovery has taught me to just be me, and that's okay. That's how I was with these kids, and they really loved it. They responded to it. They responded to the transparency. They responded to the, man, good job today. That's all they needed. And I had plenty of those. I had plenty of praise. So I did that job for like 6 years or so, 6 or 7 years. And I decided that I needed to go. I needed to change. And so I moved to my current employer, and that was super scary. And, but I did that big change. So during this whole time though, I could never achieve the things that I've achieved in my life, from going to college, from even completing drug court, having custody of my child, and not losing him, and going to college, graduating, getting this dream job, and then being really good at what I do unless I was a steady and consistent member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I carried an Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor, and I have a group of women, and I still have a group of women that I call upon if I need help. And I always know that just because you got 13 years so clean and sober doesn't mean you got all the answers. I screw up just like the next person, but I try to make my amends and I try to figure it out, and then I try to learn from it. That's the key. I got to learn from it. I moved to my current employer, and I've been there 2 years, I think. And I'm currently sitting at a laptop at home that my employer has given me to use, a second monitor, a system, and everything I need to function and work at home. My current employer trusts me to clock in and do my work and remain at home and remain unsupervised. So I'm a trusted employee today with integrity, and they gave me a couple raises during COVID. I was grateful. I went from a counselor to a clinical supervisor to a regional clinical supervisor in just under 2 years at my current employer. My boss is also blonde, and when I first met her, she had that weird little upside down on her face, like that friend I just told you about, Susan, who passed away. And everybody warned me, oh, it's just gonna be hard to work for her, be careful. And I can't tell you how many times that lady has called me, at least 3 times, and said, I just want to tell you I really appreciate you and the work that you do. I'm like, what? Because Alcoholics Anonymous and working the steps and living a program in my life today, every day, teaches me to be honest and open and have integrity and morals and work ethic and work well and be really good at what I do. Luckily, God has bestowed the gift of being really good at what I do, and I've honed it over the years with, practice and skills. I think there's natural ability in being a counselor, and I think there's, a little science, a little education, and a lot of like intuition. So today, I still go to AA. I have a sponsor. She has a couple years less than me, but that's okay because I like her deal. I like her program. I like what she stands for. I like what she talks about. I could call her. She always has a story that like similar to mine, and she's overcome some stuff that I'm currently trying to figure out, and I really like her a lot. It's about the quality of the program, not the quantity, for me. I still go to Narcotics Anonymous on occasion. I love the basic text. It's really beautifully written. And I really like the flavor and the feel of Narcotics Anonymous because my drug of choice was meth that ultimately drove me into the jails and drove me into the arms of law enforcement. And, so I do go to both programs. I do service work, today. That means I show up for a meeting on day 7 of COVID, sweating profusely with no makeup, but oh well, because I made a commitment to be here and I'm not that sick. And look, most of my friends are the ones here. I just want to point that out. So I have friends who support me. I have friends who show up. I have friends who've heard my story like 10,000 times, but they show up anyway. I have a sponsee that attended this meeting. I have a good friend who just got over COVID. And she's helping me, and she just dropped food off at my door today, and I dropped stuff off at her when she was sick, and I just got friends like that today. It's a beautiful thing. That's another reason I stay strong. I don't surround myself with people who are negative or old behavior or old using or any of that stuff. I don't go to slippery places or slippery people, which leads me to I know that Grace Roots is your motto is pathways to wellness. I think that you can get sober and clean and into recovery in any pathway in which you choose. I do not believe that you have to go to treatment or you have to go to AA. I think you could go to church, you can go to outpatient, you can just go to AA, or you can just go to NA, or you could just go to church. I've seen plenty of people do it. I also want to touch on the fact that, Grace Roots is an organization who is fighting the opiate epidemic in that county. I will say that today I have a boyfriend, and we've been together almost a year this month. It feels like an eternity. That's what I tell him all the time. It feels like forever. And I say that because when I met him, he almost had 2 years, and I had 12 or something. I don't remember, 11. And, he walked the walk and he talked the talk, and then he relapsed. But he was living in my house. So it was a really, really rough time. It was a really hard time, and it was really dark. I had to be compliant. I had to keep the peace, and I had to contain this issue because I have a child and I needed to make sure that he was safe and my home was safe until we figured out what we were going to do with this, this guy was what he was going to do. So I will touch on the fact that he did have an overdose on heroin in February. And that was super scary. I don't think I really got it. I don't think I really grasped it because I don't think I really knew. I don't know. But my point is that I work for a treatment facility and he asked me for help. And I said, I can't help you get in. This is what you do. Here's the number that you call. And I'm like, take your stuff and go to treatment because I had had enough. It's been a hard road. But he did go to treatment, and the treatment facility place I work for changed his life, he says. And I'm super proud of that we have a quality program that can even help the people closest to me. I will say that he does take, he is in MATS treatment, so he takes Suboxone, and I have to be really open with you and tell you that before working in treatment, I had a bias against that, and now I don't. You know why? Because I've seen it work. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm a huge fan of Suboxone and methadone and all that good stuff, but I'm going to tell you here and now that I've heard it from the mouth of opiate addicts who had a crippling IV heroin addiction, saying that this Suboxone, this is my insurance policy. I almost died last time I used heroin, and this strip helps me know that I'm not going to use today if it really gets bad. Now, does he have a program? Sure. Does he go to a 12-step program? Sure. Does he believe in God? Yeah, all of that. But I just want to touch on that the opiate crisis, sometimes opiate addicts need more help, and that's okay. Sometimes meth addicts need more than 8 rehabs, and that's okay. Sometimes people need more than 6 or 8 tries at AA or NA to get it right, and that's okay. So whatever it takes for the person in recovery is whatever it takes, and I am no one to judge anyone or anywhere. I will say that today I am a grateful woman in recovery. I think I just had 13 years in July. This last year was a really rough one because I dealt with my boyfriend's relapse, several times, and quite frankly, his dysfunctional behavior and my toxic behavior. So I sit here in front of you proud to say that I had therapy today at 10 o'clock, and I have therapy every Thursday at 10 o'clock. And I just started that. I'm working on me today at 13 years sober, and that's all right. I'm having EMDR therapy and working on my issues and my past PTSD. And I'm working on my daddy issues, and I'm and I'm 49 and I'm 13 years sober. It doesn't matter how old you are, and it doesn't matter how much time you got. You can always make time to work on yourself and to better yourself from the inside out. I knew that if I didn't do that, I would keep being triggered and I would keep feeling the way I was feeling, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And there is no option to use. So Kandi had a choice to either get loaded or get some therapy. And I certainly don't want to get loaded. That's not an option today. So off I went. And I love my therapist. She's super cool. Is my relationship today easy with my significant other? No. But I have a part to play in that. And I have to look at my part. And I have to set my boundaries. And I have to have a support group. And I have to stay out of his recovery. So today, how I stay strong essentially is I clean up my side of the street. And I pay attention to my side of the street. And I try to stay out of everybody else's business but my own. And I'm smirking because that's not always easy. But I try. But most of the days I do that all right. I'm working on me. My current therapy is working. I'm excited. There was some stuff that happened this week that should have kind of got me, just a couple things that should have got me a little sideways, and it didn't. I'm like, yeah. So I'm healing. And I'm gaining more self-esteem and self-worth. I just talked to my sponsor for like an hour yesterday, I think. And that was really useful. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to say that if you want to stay strong in if I want to stay strong in my recovery, because I'm not going to tell you what to do, I have to attend a 12-step program. I have a belief in God, who is my higher power. I do go to church when there's not COVID, and And I do service works in the jail through AA, where myself and my friend Larissa there, we go to jail and we share our stories with the women inmates there so they can understand that they're not alone. I sponsor people like Patty, she kicks tail. And I also answer the phone when it rings. Yesterday, somebody asked me if they could give my number to somebody because they're really need a sponsor and they got like 24 days sober or something. And I'm laid up in bed with COVID and I got nowhere to go and a cell phone. And I thought, okay, God, I get it. Got shot. I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself, okay, I'll go help somebody else. I'll get outside of myself and help someone else. And let me just tell you, she needed the help. Like when we first get into recovery, we are a hot mess, and that's okay. That's all right. Sometimes I'm a hot mess at 13 years sober. So it was really cool to get to talk to somebody and say, hey, me too, man. It's okay. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, me too. I get it. When another person in recovery says they understand where you're at and you feel like you're the only one in the world that feels like that, there is no other thing like it. All of a sudden you belong and you're unified with someone else. And I don't know about you guys, but alcohol and drug addiction always made me feel separated. And today I am a part of. So thank you, Jay, for having me here. I made it 42 minutes with this throat and this COVID. And now I have to sanitize my entire laptop. Thank you to my friends for coming. I guess the last thing I would say is if you want to be strong, you got to find your program, and whatever your program looks like is okay. But I definitely do know, as a matter of fact, I would bank all my money in my bank account that stays there today, that builds today. All my money in my bank account, I would bet that you cannot do recovery alone. So you cannot do recovery alone. So thank you for listening. I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be alive. I'm bummed I can't taste food or smell, but someday it'll come back. So thank you for everything. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for coming, Patty.
Well, thank you. If you did, that was an amazing Be Strong story, especially being on hopefully the backside of COVID. That was very comprehensive Be Strong. I think you seem to really get what our Be Strong theme is all about and why we do these. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And if you have a couple of minutes, just a couple of additional minutes, we'll just open it up quickly for questions and comments from, Patty, can we put you on the spot and ask you to weigh in tonight, or anybody else want to make a comment or ask a question?
Patty loves public speaking.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Kandi, for sharing your story. I just seen this little post in your picture on Facebook, and it had to push it, and I'm glad I did. And I appreciate everything that you teach me. And I'm really glad I was here tonight. Yeah, I mean, like you say that, like I'm choosing to go back to school. I have to get my GED, and my first thoughts in my head is just like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough anymore because, all the drugs in use. And so like seeing that you did it is just, it shines that light that knows that, even if I fail, I'm going to get back up and do it again because I am worth it. And I love your support in your story. I appreciate you.
I love you, Patty. I got my GED at 39 and I started college at 40. Yeah, so you're a little ahead of the curve, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else?
Larissa. That's my friend Larissa. She's my very favorite friend.
I love it when she says that.
Yes. So I feed her ego. I tell her.
It's so good for my ego. Hi. Thank you for sharing tonight. I always show up when Kandi starts her story. Eugene, Grants Pass, on Zoom, Roseburg, because that's what we do for our friends in recovery. We show up and we support them. It's always my favorite part when you talk about us going into jail, because I remember Kandi telling the girls that she thought she was dumb. Like I thought I wasn't smart enough for school. I thought I was dumb. And I have that hindsight memory because I'm completing my first year of college because my friend Kandi encouraged me to go back to school a year ago when I experienced job displacement due to the pandemic. So it's, recovery is really a beautiful thing because it's like we get this really undeserved grace of God gift, grace of God given gift, and then we get to turn around and give it to others. And I'm just one of the many people that Kandi has helped encourage do the things that I'm doing in my life today, so I can, increase that social mobility and access to helping other people, and showing up in the capacity that, is so freely given to me by people like my friend Kandi. So bravo. I love hearing your story. I'll never get tired of showing up and hearing that, because I always love looking hindsight, thinking, wow, I thought I remember listening to her say she thought she was dumb. And now I get to look back and say, wow, I thought I was dumb. And it's a really cool thing.
And she's not. She got a 4.0. Whoop, whoop.
Hey, Kandi, it's Archie Lighty here. I just want to thank you for your story, for sharing with us. What nice thing is that we put these online, and a lot of times people will go back and review them and garner something out of what you said and how you articulated your struggles in life. One of the things that really resonated with me that you said is that when you refer to being strong in terms of how Grace Roots is the pathways to wellness, I often think, and I love the fact that you also included, you also recognize God being in your life. I think a lot of times people forget about that. But I love the fact that you talked about there's all these different pathways. And that's the thing that I think we should all take a little bit of peace or have some solace in terms of understanding that there's no one right path. There's not one way. I honestly believe that if I'm fortunate enough to see God after this is all over, God's going to look exactly like I think God looks like, And so I think the same thing can be said about the pathway. The pathway is the path that you feel comfortable on it. And it's not necessarily the same thing that'll work for other people. So I applaud your work. Thanks for fighting through COVID tonight. And we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to make a comment or have a question before we wrap up?
Thank you for having me, Jay.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead.
I'm
Go
super
ahead and,
excited that
wrap up.
I'm super excited this recording is going to last forever with me with COVID online. Super excited.
Well, it's just shows how strong you are. And yeah, thanks again for fighting through and telling us your story. And I wish you the best in your regular recovery and your COVID recovery, especially now. So
Thank you very much.
all right, have a good night, everyone. And also check us out on Facebook. You can follow our future talks on just go to Facebook and look up Grace Roots Pathways to Wellness. And we will see you next time. Thanks again, Kandi. Great job telling your story.
Thank you, Jay.